giant orange records.
Come on, focus. All right, we're in focus now. That's good. Today I'm going to talk about my 25 top 5 albums because I tell everyone all the time, well, that's one of my top 5 albums. And I pulled these off the shelf, and my top 5 albums list is about 25 albums long. And because nobody asked for this, here you go. I'm pretty sure this is the number one. The Clientele, Suburban Light. I've talked about this quite a lot. I'm only going to say a sentence or two about all of these because it's a long list and it's really hard to talk about your favorite albums. But as the hype sticker says, brilliant, I would say that's pretty accurate, but kind of vague. So this is indie rock from London, circa 2000. It's a collection of their early singles and EPs. It's kind of dreamy, psychedelic folk pop, if you will, with really poetic and beautiful lyrics and beautiful music. It's pretty low key. Best to listen to this on a rainy night while driving in your car. And this is in no particular order. This is the Archaics self-titled album, as you can see, as sort of a Spinal Tap, Blacker Than Black. It's a really, really underexposed photo. This is some snotty 60s garage punk from Baltimore. I think this came out in 2014. If you like garage rock, and especially newer garage rock, this is an absolute must-have. Oh, the Kinks, Face to Face from 1966. The Kinks are probably my favorite band, but the Clientele is probably also my favorite band. So it's a toss-up between those two. Face to Face is probably my favorite album, and I'm trying to just stick with one band, one album per this list, but I'm gonna have to break that rule pretty soon. If you haven't heard Face to Face, it's one of the best Kinks albums, and you should definitely listen to it. The West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band, Part 1. Crazy story behind this band. Beautiful music. Is just sort of like edgy, psychedelic, folk rock. And it gets a little bit out there, but in a really incredible way. They have some beautiful songs, and they have some totally insane songs. The Golden Dawn Power Plant. Man, this is an awesome record. I was at a party with some of the guys from a band called Paint Fumes a pretty long time ago, and they played this, and I just immediately fell in love with it. And somehow I found the record like a week later in Charleston at a record store that was only open for like 2 months, and I just happened to find this for $10. I believe it's the 2008 reissue. And this is heresy, but I will say that this is probably a more cohesive album than any of the 13th Floor Elevators albums. George Kinney, who was the leader of this band, was in a band with Rocky Erickson before they kind of went their separate ways. Amicably, they were always friends. And they made The Power Plant also on International Artists, same label that the Elevators were on, except the label kind of screwed them over and delayed the release by this for over a year. They waited till Easter Everywhere came out, and then they released the Golden Dawn Power Plant. As far as like psychedelic, garage, awesome guitar tones, this is a short and sweet album with really interesting, colorful artwork. The debut Love album, self-titled, incredible. Just love this record. They inspired The Doors, among many others. They were on the same label as The Doors. Elektra Records signed The Doors and put all of their promotion money into The Doors and none of it into Love. But this is, again, it's like garagey folk rock with a punk rock attitude. It's way heavier than The Byrds. Sorry guys, I love The Byrds, but this is just like way more like punk before punk, led by Arthur Lee. Incredible band. Their first 3 albums are must-have 60s albums. This one came out in 1966, which might go down as the most incredible year for rock and roll music. Pink Floyd, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. This is Syd Barrett's early masterpiece with his band Pink Floyd before he kind of, well, it's a sad story. We all know what happened, but then there was no Pink Floyd. This is a 1988 UK reissue on the Fame label, and it sounds fantastic. I haven't heard an original, but hey, if anybody wants to send me one so I can listen to it, I'd be down to give it a try. Phenomenal album. Again, just crazy psychedelic guitars, that sort of British fairy tale kind of psychedelic songs, along with like some of the heaviest improvised guitar playing ever. It's an incredible album, and it's easily my favorite Pink Floyd album. Rodriguez, Cold Fact. Now, this is an enigmatic folk singer-songwriter from Detroit. Think of like if Bob Dylan had gone like totally psychedelic and was from Detroit and had that like heavy Detroit sound. This came out in 1970, even though I think it was mostly recorded in 1969. There's a lot of like band overdubs. There's a lot of like fuzz guitar, awesome bass lines. The fidelity of this record is insane. The story is incredible. There's a documentary called Searching for Sugar Man, which you absolutely have to watch that. This is the Light in the Attic reissue, which I've played so many times that it's starting to sound a little bit messed up. But there's a really cool booklet that came with this one, and yeah, fantastic album. Absolute favorite of mine. Incredible songwriting. And taking it to the year 2000 or 2001, I'm not really sure. Beachwood Sparks, their self-titled album. This is sort of like if the Buffalo Springfield had been cryogenically frozen and then unthawed in the late 90s, they would sound something like this. It's an incredible album of just country rock, like psychedelic cosmic country rock with a lot of like pop sensibilities, really cool 12-string electric guitars, organs, awesome bass playing, harmonies, like Beach Boys type harmonies, and just beautiful songs. This I've been listening to this for a really, really long time. And oddly enough, the CD, which I grew up with the CD version, has a somewhat different track listing than this blue vinyl edition. The Remains self-titled album. This might arguably be like the best garage rock album by some insanely competent musicians who opened up for the Beatles. I mean, that's quite a achievement in and of itself. This is one of the Record Store Day reissues from, I believe, 2016 or something. Yeah, I mean, incredible, essential albums. I mean, these guys are just really, really good, had some really innovative ideas, and just some awesome, kick-ass, in-your-face songs. Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. What hasn't already been said about this album? This is one that I didn't get it when I first heard it, but then it grew on me and my ears grew up and I heard it with the right ears and I just ended up falling in love with it. This is a double LP reissue because it's like an hour long. There's a whole like crazy story with like they got dropped by their label and then picked up by a subsidiary. There's a really cool documentary called I'm Trying to Break Your Heart, which you should watch. There's these Twin Towers from Chicago, not New York. This album was supposed to come out on 9/11, and there's just like so many eerie lyrics like tall buildings, voices shake. Jesus, etc. is a song that's particularly eerie. Ashes of American Flags, like what a weird coincidence, but it's a brilliant album by Jeff Tweedy and co. The last album that Jay Bennett was on, and like I love Wilco, but they haven't been the same since. The Beatles, Rubber Soul. This, of course, is one of my grails. It's a mono edition on Odeon Records. This is a South American pressing, and it sounds fantastic in mono, as the Beatles should be heard up until 1968 or so. It's hard to pick a Beatles album. It was somewhere between Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, and A Hard Day's Night. And I love all the Beatles albums for different reasons. And I'm halfway through my quest on getting all original mono pressings. But for now, this, I believe it's a Peruvian pressing, which sounds amazing. It'll do. And then we get the master songwriter himself, Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde. I was just entering college when I heard Dylan and really got into him. His like really clever lyrics. This is a mono first press. And yeah, it's in pretty good shape. Of course, the way you know it's a first press is, and by the way, what a cool gatefold. You can see the full figure of his Bobness here, wearing just the coolest outfit. It's a slightly out of focus photo. It's a little bit blurry. I love that. This first press has the actress and model Claudia Cardinale in it. Hi, Claudia. And she didn't like that they used her image on here, so it was removed from later pressings. Doesn't change the sound of the music, just one of those cool little factoid, cool factor things like, I bet you didn't know this. Well, all I can say is now you know. And of course, I put all my albums in these little protective plastic sleeves because that's what you should do to keep them from getting messed up and you won't get any water damage. Again, the mono sounds great. I also have a stereo first press, which is pretty beat up, but it sounds fantastic. Both mixes are fine by me. And there's one song on here, I think it's Visions of Johanna, that has one bad bass note on it, and it just cracks me up every time. But Bob was the kind of guy that just was like, roll with it, first take, best take. The movie A Complete Unknown just came out on streaming, and I absolutely love that movie. And, you know, historical accuracy be damned. It's a great story. It's very inspiring, and it's really well done. And that was just the most creative period of Bob Dylan's time, I think. He's had a lot of great eras, but he kind of made his whole career based on like those first 6-8 years. Moving on to another 1966 masterpiece, of course, the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds in glorious mono, because, you know, Brian Wilson loved mono, because unfortunately Murray, his dad, clobbered him over the ear, and then he was deaf in one ear, so he had to do mono. It didn't take away from his genius as a songwriter or producer. And again, another movie where you get to see Brian in the studio. It's called Love and Mercy. Really love those studio scenes in that. It's, you know, it makes the hair on my neck stand up when I see that stuff. You know, as a musician, it's very inspiring. And yeah, Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. What can I say? It's a brilliant, brilliant album. Oh yeah, so weren't going to be too many doubles, but the Kinks, Village Green Preservation Society, and just an absolute masterpiece from 1968. It was released the same day in November 68 when the White Album came out, and of course the White Album completely outsold the Kinks, who were just kind of waning in popularity at that point, but their music was still brilliant. This is a anniversary edition mastered by Kevin Gray, 2018 stereo. Sounds great. I also have a PRT stereo, and that sounds good. It was Pi Records in the early 80s. I think that's a Spanish press. Both of them sound fantastic. Would love to get an original Pi mono one day, but I mean, like, talk about fantastic albums, like start to finish. Brilliant, brilliant stuff here. And an early concept album too. And then we get the Mac Daddy of compilations, This is Nuggets, original artifacts from the psychedelic era from 65 to 68. I mean, what a fantastic time, compiled by Lenny Kaye, put out on the ever wonderful Elektra Records. And yeah, man, like this has all the garage nuggets. I think I first heard this when I was 15 or 16, and I still absolutely love it to this day. It inspired all the punk bands that were to come soon after that, and it was just sort of like a breath of fresh air from all like the prog rock and the long songs and the jam bands from the early 70s that had kind of gotten away from like the 2-3 minute like garage pop nugget, or just like a song with a little bit of psychedelic production and sort of the punk attitude. And on to some jazz. Kenny Burrell, Midnight Blue. This is arguably probably the most accessible jazz album ever. If you don't like jazz, but you like blues, this would be a great place to start. This is on Blue Note. This is a recent reissue. Sounds phenomenal. I mean, Rudy Van Gelder had a studio in New Jersey. I think it was in his house. He recorded a lot of those jazz albums for Blue Note, and his production was just second to none. Like some of the best sounding music recordings of all time were made by him. This is one. Kenny Burrell's a guitar player. He has Stanley Turrentine on sax and Ray Barretto on percussion. Such a great, great album. I mean, just the guitar playing is so, so cool. Another indie favorite, this is Brendan Benson's Lapalco. Brendan Benson went on to be in the Raconteurs with Jack White, and he and Jack White have been lifelong friends. Brendan Benson was like the first big indie artist to make it out of Detroit in the 90s, and I believe he had to wait for his contract to end from One Mississippi, which came out in the 90s, and this is like 2002, 2003 or something. And again, on the vinyl, which has gotten quite expensive, I ordered this from Brendan Benson's website for like $25 back in the day. And now I get people that message me on Discogs like, hey, do you want to sell this? I'm like, A, how did you know what's on my Discogs? I guess I listed it, and I guess it's public, which is kind of weird. But, you know. Metairie, the second track on the LP, is completely different from the CD version that I played out when I was in high school. But yeah, it's a great singer-songwriter album. I believe he recorded and played almost all the instruments himself. It's just like McCartney-inspired power pop, and it's just clever and just really, really good. One of my favorite songwriters. Then we get Robin Hitchcock. You know, all these guys live in Nashville now, too, with the Soft Boys, Underwater Moonlight. This is a really early pressing of this great album that's inspired equally by, like, Syd Barrett and by punk rock and Bob Dylan and all that good stuff. Incredible, incredible album. It just like it bridges the gap between psychedelic and punk. As does this one. This is the Frowning Clouds. Whereabouts. This is an Australian band, and gosh, Australia has some of the most awesome psychedelic and punk bands and indie bands. Like, that's just like an incredible hotbed for awesome indie music. This is a giant orange record. You may recognize that from the intro. Anyway, this is just a great, like, fuzzed out psychedelic garage pop rock record. And then we go back to the mid-60s to Booker T and the MG Soul Dressing, an original Stax pressing of this. Super hard to find. Found it on at the flea market one day a long time ago in Ladson, South Carolina. What a brilliant, brilliant album this is. It inspired the Small Faces, who I think covered Plum Nelly. And just, I don't know, these guys were on top of their game as the Stax House Band, and just an enjoyable instrumental group. They were like the sole instrumental group of the 60s. And then keeping it in the jazz realm, we have Jimmy Smith back at the Chicken Shack. What an incredible master of the Hammond B3 organ. Such an expressive instrument. And again, we got a lot of our favorite players from the Kenny Burrell album, like Kenny Burrell on guitar on a few tracks, Stanley Turrentine again, and Donald Bailey. Just love Jimmy Smith, is one of the greatest organ players. This is the original Blue Note pressing, and I have a remaster of this that I got before I got this one, and I almost want to say the reissue sounds better than the original, and it's more expensive. This was $14, and the reissue is like $36. Not sure what's going on with that. And here is the Ventures in Space. This is my absolute favorite Ventures album. This is the first one where they switched to the Mossrite guitar. You can kind of see it. See the Mossrite guitars there. It's very, very psychedelic for early 1964. They do a great cover of Out of Limits and Penetration. And the originals on here are just really cool. Like, it's hands down my favorite Ventures album. And these guys are the other like instrumental master group of the 1960s. And back to like garage psychedelic indie. This is Ty Segall and White Fence with Hair. This came out, I believe, in 2012. I picked this up at the great Park Avenue CDs in Orlando, which has like a great selection of new indie rock. I can't believe how cheap this record is. I guess I paid $18.98 for it. You can get this thing for like $12 on Discogs nowadays, which is just a crying shame. I think I'm gonna like buy up all the copies that are available and just give them to my friends and force them to listen to this, because it's about like some of like the most crazy out there psychedelic garage rock. It's sort of like the White Album and just Donovan, and just kind of like maxed out garage craziness. These two like guitar slingers just like fuzzing it out, just having a great time. You can tell they had fun making this. And who could forget the Olivia Tremor Control Dusk at Cubis Castle? These guys are like the Velvet Underground of the 90s, part of the Elephant Six Collective, blue vinyl edition here. Just some of the most like out there psychedelic stuff ever made. I believe this came out in 96. Of course, Neutral Milk Hotel became the most popular band on that label, but these guys were friends, and they were actually in each other's bands, and Jeff from Neutral Milk Hotel actually named the Olivia Tremor Control, and some of the Olivia Tremor Control guys came up with the Neutral Milk Hotel name, so they named each other's bands, which is really awesome. This is just, again, just crazy out there psychedelic stuff. It's like more psychedelic than anything from the 60s, and then there's just some brilliant like lo-fi pop songs there too. And of course, the Left Bank, Walk Away Renee, like one of the most brilliant and unique albums from the 1960s. A pretty clean original copy. I had the Sundays reissue, which I eventually sold, and actually the reissue costs more than the original. Like, how strange is that? But anyway, just like a brilliant album. We've all heard Walk Away Renee and Pretty Ballerina, but I've got Something on My Mind has one of the coolest harpsichord intros of the 1960s. I Haven't Got the Nerve, Lazy Day, just so many good songs. She May Call You Up Tonight. And I mean, these guys were just, I don't know, it's just different. It's sort of like Beatles level compositions. And then we get my favorite live performance of all time, once again featuring Booker T and the MGs backing up Otis Redding at the Monterey International Pop Festival. And Jimi Hendrix is on the other side of this, but it's only a partial performance of Jimi Hendrix, so it's kind of weird. Whereas the Otis Redding performance from Monterey is the full performance, which is probably not even 20 minutes long. It's just a 5-song blast. They had to stop at a certain time, I guess, because of a curfew or something. So they just like rip and roar through this set, and it's Otis Redding in top form. It's the first time Otis Redding had played in front of a quote unquote white audience and a really huge audience. And then before the end of that year, he unfortunately died in a plane crash in Wisconsin. But man, like this, man, I'm getting fired up. Like I'm gonna stop this video and go put this record on right now. But first, I got to tell you about one more album on my top 25. This is the Chills Kaleidoscope World, another band from New Zealand, some Kiwi rock. They were from the 80s and beyond. Just again, like brilliant psychedelic indie pop songs. It's equal parts like 60s and 80s. Yeah, just absolutely love this stuff. They were on the Flying Nun label, which is the New Zealand indie rock label. So there you have it. There's my top 25 albums. And I don't know how to count because I was more than 25 albums. Till next time, keep rocking out your favorite music. And, I think, why do I buy more records when I already have all these records that I like? Well, sometimes I don't always want to listen to my favorites. And how long would it take to cycle through these 25 plus albums? I don't know. I could probably listen to them all in a week or two. Anyway, rock on, my friends.
Giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange, giant, orange.